And just like that, Succession is in the rearview mirror. We're all freaking crying out here. I'm only 3 years late. Oh my goodness. Can you believe it? We finished Succession in the Lord of our... No, it's supposed to be in the Lord of our year? No. The year of our Lord. 2026, within the first 2 months, no biggie, just watched a whole show, one of those shows you're supposed to watch, I'm feeling pretty accomplished. It's actually like the third show I fucking finished this year already, so, I'm pretty fucking cool and shit. So, don't mind me. But who cares about all my flexing? How much flexing was season 4 of Succession doing? A decent amount, we would say. And actually, the first thing I have to address here in my great note document is Succession a 10? A question, the answer for which I still do not know. I'm a little torn. In fact, I've finished Succession 2 or 3 days ago. I wanted to let it sit, marinate a little bit. We'll come back with some more sharpened, pinpointed opinions. And I think I have zero sharpened and pinpointed opinions. But we want to get this. These have all been right after I finish them, so we have to get to it. We have to get our stream of conscious out there. And I'm sure in the future, whenever I reference Succession, it will be more cemented in certain ways. I really don't know. I feel like I enjoyed Succession a lot. I feel like I'll think about Succession a lot. I feel like I'll think about the characters in Succession a lot. It's not gripping me right to the 10, so that's kind of leaning towards a 9, I think. But it's also, is it the best thing I've consumed this year? I've consumed one thing I've considered a 10 out of 10 this year, and that is the first Dunk and Egg novella. Is Succession better than that? I think Succession will probably stick with me more than that. But Dunk and Egg's just such a tale, I truly don't know. It's just interesting. Because there's aspects of it that are definitively a 10. And then there's also the thing where, like, the last 5 or so episodes, it took me a while to watch, and I wasn't so motivated to keep going. That actually leads me to my second dot point here, which is a thing that I feel like has firmly been cemented in my mind, having finished the show, having gone through season 4, having felt his absence through 7 or so episodes of season 4, though he's in little bits and pieces everywhere. I think Succession is very much the Logan Roy show for me. Which is interesting because I have dove into the way people talk about Succession a little bit. You finish a show, you get to go and see all the titles of the video essays you plan on watching but never actually do to generalize the general opinion. There's also, of course, the normies' reactions, which I've been watching as I've been going, and you get sort of the general opinion from their comment section of what they harp on and stuff. Now, I do need to think about this moving forward because I definitely had aspects ruined and little things clarified more than I would like by looking at the normies comment section, where they're very careful. Like, there's not explicit spoilers in there, but there are interpretations and sort of reflective longings for things, especially in those early seasons. Like, this is one of the only times Kendall and Shiv have a real moment or something, they'll say in season 2 when they hug or something. It's like, well, that's kind of a massive fucking spoiler, retards. But alas, I did read them. Also, the fact that it kept recommending me 4x3 constantly, and it looked dire, and the title of that was The King is Dead, which could have meant a few things, but probably only meant one thing, and it was the thing I had assumed it meant, did kind of ruin that Logan was going to die in episode 3 for me. Even then, being like 95% sure it was going to happen this episode, it's a pretty big shock when it's actually happening and how sudden it is and things like that. But I'm sure we'll talk about that more in a little bit. Yeah, I think when we're also talking about Logan, I think he is the force of the show. But how much is this just me? Well, I guess the general discourse stuff is interesting because a lot of people do really like Kendall or like think he's like the most interesting character or something. And I think he's definitely the least interesting of the main ones to me. I think I like Shiv. I think I like Logan. I think I like Roman even. But I definitely think all the things going on there are like more interesting than what's going on with Kendall. But Kendall is definitely simpler, but it's more like an emotional turmoil of like he's like a good guy like 50% of the time, and then the other 50% of the time, which is like when he's like losing, he's like a good guy, and when he's winning, he's like an evil billionaire kid. Like, as soon as he starts to get a sniff of it, it happens. I guess this is actually the third and the final general overall dot point that I definitely feel strongly about with Succession, is that it absolutely commits to its principles. The principles we've been talking about the whole review series here: restraint, the constant scheming, the principles behind the characters of none of these guys can win or consistently win. They're all bullshit, as Roman would say. And they all sort of have key undoings. Like, Roman is just a little weird. Kendall just loses all sense when he starts winning and spirals and always self-destructs. Greg always just is an absolute opportunist. And so is Tom, kind of. And I think Shiv does become probably the most interesting character, I guess, besides Logan. Because when there's such a fascination with Logan, and it feels so real because it's so unexplored in the way. It's very interesting. Succession is very real. I'm cutting myself off to pivot constantly, but forgive me. I don't need your forgiveness, you fucking idiot. Sit down and listen. Logan is so not what his reputation is, but he also so is. And that makes him feel very like a real person. And then there's like the way things were sprinkled in at his funeral and even after that, of like little things you wouldn't expect, feel like things you do learn at a funeral. Because whenever you go to a funeral, they do have somebody who like narrates the person's whole life. And even if you knew the person really well, like it was like my grandfather or something, like I don't know anything about when he crashed his car in the 50s or something, which is going to get like a whole paragraph in this thing, and like characterize who he is and stuff like that. And especially with like funeral speeches, they do narrativize something. There were some speeches that were narrativizing in this funeral, I'll tell you that much. But even then, like the implications and thinking about them and thinking about how they do like give a new light or whatever, what's that saying? Gleam new light into like the person or the character you knew, but it also doesn't entirely fit. And it's sort of like the facts that all these aspects of Logan don't entirely fit to like the point where it's like he feels like a living, breathing person. Because there's like, Logan's like an evil guy. And you're like, well, yeah, that's pretty true, brother. But then he does like non-evil things sometimes. And not even an interesting, like the way, and this is a thing you constantly say about Succession, right? The way, if you hadn't seen Succession and you heard me say that, like he's an evil guy, but he does good things sometimes. You're thinking about like Tywin Lannister or something. I don't even know if that's a good comparison. But that's like not the thing, and it's all worn in Succession like paint, where it's like, it is still nasty whenever he does something nice. But it also feels more real in that way. Like, remember when he's reading to Kendall's kids after they think Kendall tried to kill himself in the pool or whatever? It's like he's actually being a grandfather. And it's kind of like he's kind of trying to fuck with Kendall by being like, I'm looking after your kids after I just fucked you, loser, or whatever. Kill yourself. And there's also like now he's choosing to be a grandfather. Remember when he hit this kid in one of these episodes or whatever? But there's also like the aspect of the kids don't understand the subtext to this. So to them, he is just being like a grandfather here. That's like a big piece of characterization. And then obviously the guilt over him maybe killing his little sister with polio or whatever, or bringing it back. And then the other stuff, like even the last bit of recontextualization, the two words together. What can I say? I'm a genius. I invent terms. When he's singing with all his like guys at the table when the kids aren't there, and how kind of warm that seems. He's also an unpleasable person, which makes him real. There's definitely people like Logan. Like, I feel like I've known people like Logan. I feel like when I hear stories about Vince McMahon, it reminds me a lot of Logan. And it's just fascinating. But true, we were talking about Logan, and I think we were talking about Succession sticking to its principles. Like, the characters never have real honest conversations with each other. Well, kind of. The siblings kind of do, but it's never like... I guess it's never definitive. Like, nobody ever learns anything or establishes anything ever. It's all just like we all have pre-existing relationships, and these are going to continue to exist. Like, Shiv did fuck Kendall in a big way at the end of the show. But, like, they're probably going to be fine in, like, 2 months when they're scheming against something else. And then they're going to turn on each other again, like, immediately. And they're just going to do that every few months. And they're going to be together forever. And then something horrible is going to happen. Their mother's going to die. They're going to have a great rejoining at her funeral. And I don't know, it just, all that stuff is interesting. Because I can definitely see some critiques of Succession. And I think I've seen them under the comments of certain things as I've just been looking around. Is like, the characters are in the same place in the middle of season 3 that they were at the beginning. And that's why I dropped the show or something. I think I saw a Reddit post about that or something. It's like, it's just like the biggest piece of retardation you've ever seen. Like, the fundamental lack of understanding of what this show is and what it has to say is, like, crazy. In that way, it is very prestige drama, where it is very Sopranos and Mad Men in that way. Even though it's absolutely nothing like those shows. I just wanted to pivot, then I thought not to pivot, then I thought to pivot back, but by the time I had thought to pivot back, I had forgotten what I was pivoting to originally. Oh, I remember. There, we talk about descriptive realism a lot. It's one of my famous terms I've made up. I don't know, do I have to go through the whole examples? It's very interesting how different series commit to their idea of how people are and, like, what they're like. Like, The Sopranos, and they all individually feel very, very grounded and real, even though they, like, contradict each other massively. The world is a very diverse place, full of many tones and characters and universal experiences. My goodness, how eclectic living life really is. And no show, no matter how great, can really capture that. They can only capture one aspect. And even in that, it is unimaginably fascinating. Wow. But, like, The Sopranos has similar principles to this show. It's just the method of the portrayal of those principles is absolutely 100% completely trillion times different. It's like in The Sopranos, everybody is, like, evil to each other. They do undermine each other. But in that, it's like for silly, tiny little things that annoy people. And the kind of the point of The Sopranos is, like, the minor, most nitpicky annoyance somebody has with you will inform their entire opinion of you for a short period of time that can be deadly, and can summarize you and, like, have them write you off and put you in a box and stuff like that. Succession has similar things because they both have things like characters don't change, they stay the same, dynamics stay the same, people don't learn or grow, this is not a story like that, that's not how real life is, etc., etc. But the way Section does it and the way people talk to each other is just so different, and it's so fascinating. Like, the scheming, and not even the clever scheming, like the completely found out scheming, like every 2 seconds. Like, whenever somebody tries to fuck somebody over, they know by the next episode. And sort of the just moving on from that is very real, I think, to me, and very interesting. And very family. Which is interesting because Tom and Shiv's relationship is like this too, even though that had to have started somewhere and doesn't need to continue like a brother or a sister or a mother or a father relationship does. But another core, like, Succession principle, this is outside of, like, thematic principles about people being bad, but, like, design principles, is that it's always the same group of characters in every situation. They're all always going to somehow be there. Like, somehow Connor is at the office for the fucking election. Even though he wasn't in the election, so it's not that far of a stretch, but you'd think he should be at home or something. But of course he shows up so we could have a bunch of interactions with all these characters. And the close-knit cast is, like, definitely a major appeal of this show, where every episode there's a big event and somehow all the characters are there to do their thing, to do the same thing they always do. It is so interesting. If you were to track, like, the sides and conflicts in the show, like, episode to episode, and how much they would shift if you just have 2 columns of, like, for Logan against Logan or something, and they're like, Shiv and Roman are over here now, but now they're over here, and now they're back over here, and originally they were over here, and now and it just keeps going back and forth as people try to take little opportunities and people try and fuck each other over. And again, they don't do it in a good way. And then, like, the other principle, like, design principle is almost that Logan does always win. Like, he never loses. And it seems like a silly, like, unrealistic thing, but it feels so realistic because he really does have it for lack of a better term, and like nobody else does. The only one that's kind of close is Madsen, who does kind of always win too. And I know it goes back to the last thing Logan says to his kids, well, at least to them as a group. I wasn't pausing for dramatic effect, I was reading. But he does say, you are not serious people. And we sort of are reminded of this constantly. And I guess a big hang-up for me has always been putting Shiv in that category. And I think there is probably a part of me that could go back and forth on this. But I think it works. I think Shiv being a fuck-up too works. Because they do this, again, it's the Cersei thing. They do the, you're not as smart as you think you are, which is absolutely, obviously true for Cersei. And it's much more blatant with Cersei than it is with Shiv. But it can be true for Shiv too. And Shiv also, like, being a liberal at times comes into play a lot too, to fuck her over. But also, there is almost like a basic feminist message, because the reason why she does get fucked out of it in the end is because Madsen does want to fuck her. And thinks it might happen, so he doesn't want to have another messy situation with a woman like he has with Ebba. So he chooses Tom instead. It's crazy. Also, it is kind of funny, I guess we didn't talk about this, but Tom did kind of win Succession, but also not really, because Madsen is over the top of him. And I guess it's like a thing they've been talking about in the series the whole time too, is that Tech is going to win in the end or whatever. And I guess it did. But yeah. The people not having those really honest, could be absolutely cathartic, best scenes of all time scenes did kind of continue in the show. I guess Shiv and Tom do get to have the argument, but even then, it doesn't like change things. There's not a definitive... They never have the Betty and Don season 3 episode 11 thing of like forever their relationship is different from this point on. Like they do just keep circling back to each other, and it is fascinating to have that... I think I talked about this in season 1, where it's like it is doubling down on some of those principles from Mad Men and The Sopranos, where it's like bad people always, power fantasy never, unless it's Logan, I guess. But even then, not so. And like people don't change, like committing to that bit, and just having it always circle in on each other. It's fascinating. What a strong show Bible this show must have, or whatever. Are those the bigger points? Did I get everything in there? Now, I kind of don't want to talk about characters in too much depth here, because I will do a tier list, probably in a few days or something, and go over them more in totality, with a little bit more time in the rearview mirror. But we will touch on them all briefly and stuff like that. The only thing I have written down here that I didn't say about the Logan thing is him having it is best on display when he does give that speech to ATN in episode 2, where it like actually is a galvanizing speech. And it's like a speech we've seen like Kendall try and give a bunch of times and like failed at completely. And you just buy it with Logan, and it's like, this is like the power of this man. This is why he is who he is, and this is why he always wins. But true. And yes, he did die in episode 3, like I was spoiled on, so that ended up happening. Restraint, Kendall falling and failing, and always getting arrogant. True, like that. I do really like that. The reason why Shiv turns on him in the end is that he puts his feet on their desk, or their dad's desk, and is like shit talking, and is like clearly going power crazy at the first sense of absolute power corrupts absolutely, but even like before you have any power at all, because Kendall's an idiot. I mean, it is interesting. I guess this is another pretty big doc point that I have at the end. Is that there's a tension in the last episode of like, is somebody going to win this? Are the siblings going to win this? Because there's a few ways it can go. The siblings actually do come together and win, which is a possibility. And then the other possibility is like, and in that possibility is like, are we really doing the full circle thing of Kendall just getting it in the end? Like, this story is the long and winding road of him ending up at the place where he was supposed to be in episode 1, where he gets the company and gets to be CEO. The answer to that question is no, and that Shiv does fuck him, and he does fail again. And it is interesting, because there is like a calm in the moment on like the raft where they all swim out to it, and they're like, we're anointing you or whatever, and then they have the little cute meal for a king whatever scene. And it's even almost a cute, like, goodbye with the mother. but it just doesn't stand. And because you're trying to when you get to a final episode, you're kind of trying to feel out what feels the most right, and this must be a nightmare to like conceptually write or whatever. Where it's like, because you really can't tell until all the elements fit together if you fucked it up or if you nailed it. But like, it's just like a thing where it's like, is it all coming together? If the siblings do come together, does that feel like a betrayal of the whole show because we're going against how they've always acted? Or is it like the payoff for the whole show where finally, for once, they are all actually going to come together? And same with Kendall. Is this whole show about him rising or whatever, or is he going to completely fuck it again in the end? It's like, do we stick to the principles or do we develop, and which feels more right for the show? And I think ultimately it does feel pretty right that they stick to the principles and nobody wins. But yeah, there is an odd feeling when they anoint Kendall and you're like, it does feel comforting being like, wow, it's like it was at the beginning. Like that arbitrary want for full circleness is very much alive. And it's interesting. Fucking yawny today, huh? We can talk about the Roman crying stuff at the funeral. That was sweet, and my goodness, Roman really fucked it up too. And everybody goes off about this acting performance. It is sweet. I don't know. Part of me doesn't like when characters break like this. Like, part of me is like, I don't know. It makes me feel like we're trying to be too obvious with the subtext of the character. But it is done in such a different way with Roman, where it's not like he has a moment where he like realizes he's like acting the whole time. It's just like it's forced out of him by the trauma of the moment he's tried to like neglect for the last 7 days or whatever it's been since his dad died. And him like reducing to like a child or whatever is really, it does work. It is great. What's the line? Is he in there? Can we get him out or whatever? Is very. There is like a proximity thing and like a disbelief in what death really is at funerals, where it's like, wow, that person was alive like not a few days ago, and like now they're in that box. It's like, surely we can do something to reverse this or something. It's kind of like the thought process you go through, and there's like the realization or the weight of the knowledge that you know that that's not possible. But the fact that it feels so possible or something is interesting. And that's sort of brought up in Roman stuff here. And they all give speeches, and I do like all the little speeches. Well, the Ewan speech is great too, because it feels very heartfelt and like real. And that relationship was always really interesting. Again, something we don't really ever get a payoff to. Also, Greg's mum was there for like the first time since like the first episode or something, or the second episode, which was like interesting. Them all getting mad at Greg for letting Ewan go up is hilarious. There's also a really like kind of cute moment where, because Tom doesn't show up, so they need somebody else on the casket. And the mother tries to get her new husband to do it, and Shiv like immediately rejects it and like gives it to Greg. And the like, I don't know, there's just something really cute about that, where it's like she does like hate Greg and thinks he's like annoying and he shouldn't be here and he's like a leech or whatever, but he is like much more fitting than Peter or whatever his name is. Just because he is around and Logan did know him, and is the Who Wants to Smell Greggy's Finger? That's in this season, right? That's pretty great. Yes, because all the disgusting brothers stuff is this season. That's pretty great. All the there was great Logan stuff in that, like he's clearly like Mrs. Roman being a retard, so he's like, somebody tell a joke, and nobody can tell a joke, and Frank tries and Jerry says no, and then Greg tries, and then Greg tries to get mean because Greg is like a little shit who actually does get mad and is not tactful at all, even though he's tripped his way up and manipulated his way up into the system. So he's like, where are your kids, Uncle Log? And he's like, he tells him, where's your dad or something? It's pretty good. That was funny stuff. All that stuff was great. The funeral's a great scene, and everybody being there, and sort of the looks everybody gives as they go past. And there is like a recognition things at funerals where you see people, and it's like, it was very good. And everybody kind of being remorseful a little bit for real, even like Madsen a little bit, is interesting. Even though like none of them really like Logan and all that stuff, it's just a very weird dynamic, and they nailed it, and it was great. Um, they didn't end up letting Connor speak though, so that was upsetting. You know, they always forget about the great Connor. What can we say? What's my next note here? The not being able to answer a question, the ill-genuineness and voice of Tom continues even when Logan is dying. That is interesting. This is another, the show sticking to its principles, and in this way it paying off in, like, great fashion. Is like, Tom and characters, whenever they have to deliver bad news in this show, never actually say it. They, like, say, I don't know, it's like this thing, and I don't know, maybe, and, you know, maybe it's good, but it doesn't look good, but maybe it'll be good. And they always do that little blabbermouth thing. And Tom, like, doing it as Logan is dying and is pretty clearly dead, but is, like, trying to remain hopeful, but knowing that that's, like, a bad thing, and the internal conflict in the words he says and in his voice and stuff like that. And the fact that they carried it over into this serious moment. Because the Logan death could have been handled completely different from anything else in the show, and it kind of would have... And again, it's like the restraint thing. It probably would have been more emotion-fueled or something, but it just wouldn't feel right for the show, so the commitment to the restraint. And to continue the very direct and fleshed out characterization in all those moments is really great, and it's like epitomized by the way Tom is like answering questions. It's just freaking really good, bro. It's just the best. So yeah, I was really wow with that. Also, the way they do it, the way they have to slowly find Shiv and tell her, the way they have to find Connor and tell him, the way they like are all still being selfish, and like they didn't go and get Shiv as early as they would, and then Shiv wants to be mad at them for not coming to get her, but then she doesn't know like if that's a fucked up thing to do, and then like them kind of having the argument and stuff like that, and Roman not wanting to say he's dead, and Shiv wanting to, and all that stuff, and the way Shiv especially was reacting to things felt very real. It's a very good pieces of acting from all of them. And especially because they're all supposed to hate him at the time, but then it like bleeds away pretty quickly. And then there's also like extra details Tom gives like funnily in the next scene or whatever about how like he died trying to get his phone out of the toilet that was full of shit or whatever, and he's like, because he wouldn't wear his compression socks because he was trying to impress Carrie, and the old dudes are wearing the compression socks so the next time they get on the fucking jet. Everything is little details. We love it. Kendall becoming erratic and mean and having nothing to contribute other than do it right. True. That's like a core Kendall principle, and they committed to it here, where he's like, you just gotta get the best lawyers, not the best lawyers, the best doctors, and you gotta tell him, Frank, you gotta tell him to do it. And it's like, because Kendall is completely substanceless in every like sense of the word. He just says like things that he thinks is like the thing to say. Also, he does have kind of a sweet moment with Frank. It's interesting because even that, like, you kind of, especially in the beginning, you get the sense that Frank and Kendall are really close. But it's been like so long, and you think maybe they're going to rekindle it towards the end, but they don't. And it's another like very Succession thing. But they do get to have this moment here where Frank like breaks the news and stuff like that and says, I'm pretty sure he's dead. To the people actually going to do things, true, I said that was part of the Kendall thing I just said. True. I think that's the extent of the things I have to say about the Logan dying thing. It was very abrupt, and it's very effective in its abruptness. Everything just feels good. Then they have like the little fight with the people on the plane or the old people, and who's going to get to control the narrative and stuff like that is all interesting. And it's funny how they kind of dance with the, isn't this a disrespectful thing to do as he's dying or something, but they don't dwell on it too long because obviously none of the characters actually believe that, and they do immediately start going for their own self-interests pretty quickly. Even if the grief is real for some of them. Also, like, Jerry and Jerry gets fired at the beginning of the episode, but it doesn't carry over or whatever, and also the Roman like betrayed them and wasn't telling them and doesn't really ever actually tell them. He kind of brings it up in certain passes, but only lightly. The Connor's still getting married is great. Oh, there was one other thing I wanted to say about that. That was very... Oh, I guess this transitions into the Jerry and Roman stuff, where there is also never a payoff for that. Like, there's a bunch of moments where it's like, you think Jerry is going to, like, go and sit with Roman and, like, build them up or something, and they're going to actually have a sweet moment or something, but it never happens. Like, the closest thing is like Jerry like telling them to not make fun of Roman, or because Carl has like the audio of him whimpering at the funeral and is like giggling. And Frank doesn't think that's cool because Frank is like a nice guy and stuff like that. And Jerry also doesn't. That's like the closest we get to him. Like they don't have a big talk at any point about anything. And that's all interesting. It's also interesting that Carolina and Jerry are the ones that Madsen tries to keep, which is funny. And also probably the ones that Tom ends up keeping. Anyway, I have written down, seeing Logan at the beginning of episode 6 filled me with warmth. True, you miss him. You're like, man, this is the best character in the show. I wish he was back right now. But he's not. How sad. Shiv's little acting quirks are the best. I don't know what exactly I was talking about here, but she has such like range and like her reactions to things are like great, and like the nuances there. Now that I've learned that she's Australian, which I think I was supposed to bring up last time, but I didn't, like, because I think in the normies comment section somebody told me they were I read that they were both, her and Tom were both British, but she's not British. That's very racist of you. She's Australian, which also makes her appearance like, oh yeah, like of course she is. She's like, that type of strawberry blonde doesn't exist in America, not possible. I'm trying to do a nationalistic rant here. I think a lot of the little things are like Australian girl things that she like incorporates, which is, I've also seen like little clips of everybody, and the actors do feel a lot like the characters, like the way they talk and stuff. So it's very clear that all the actors put a lot of themselves into all these characters, and especially their little tics and stuff like that. Brian Cox is probably the only one I've seen that doesn't really seem like his character at all, which is interesting. Which is, I know, is another talking point you put in the comment sections of all Succession reactions. Did you know that Brian Cox is about the exact opposite of what fucking Logan Roy is, or something? And you're like, wow. I'm trying to say that her Australian girls are just way more interesting than all other girls, or something. Well, Kiwi girls kind of go into this category too. I'm just covering my bases here. You know what I'm saying? And that's why Millie Alcock is so interesting, and that's why fucking Sarah Snoke is so interesting in this. So that's my little rant. I actually do believe that, by the way, but honestly, what it probably is, I only really recognize it in them because they feel familiar. But anyway, moving on. It was very cute when Shiv, from the coffin over, we talked about this. Peter breaking in the finale was cute because Peter's kind of been a nice guy, and you can't tell if he's actually just a nice guy getting duped. It's so funny that the mother just like makes fun of everybody as soon as they get out of earshot, even like her husband and stuff, that she's like hoping to get like credit for marrying or whatever. Like him, as soon she like has something, and it's not the meanest thing you've ever heard, but she's always demeaning him when like he gets out of earshot. And it's like, I know so many people like this, where it's like they probably are impressed with people, but how they speak, they always have to get ahead of like the insults and start the insults themselves or whatever. So that's interesting. I don't know if I have any notes in here, but the pregnancy stuff with Shiv was really interesting, and the way she went about telling everybody and stuff like that was great. And the way it comes out in one of the arguments with Tom was also great. And his like, is it even real thing is like great. Because that's what she kept saying to Logan. And it wasn't real then, but she's telling the truth, proving that she's not like Logan, and she freaking sucks. What are we doing? Everybody looking at the casket as Kendall talks about his father more, I need more. Oh, true. There's like scenes where, as Kendall's doing his speech, like we get individual characters looking at the casket and like they're clearly all feeling different things. And I thought that was a great little detail. I was like, I want them all to have like internal 5-minute monologues right now explaining exactly what they're feeling. But again, Succession has such restraint, they don't do that stuff. But my goodness, if I was writing this show, I would. I'd indulge in every big moment. Lucas and Shiv flirting comes to a head in the finale. True, this is another interesting like thingy of like, it's pretty obvious. Like Shiv goes to like Lucas's room, and her and Tom are having a fight. So you're like, oh, we know where this is going. Shiv is gonna have sex with Lucas, and that's gonna make things even more interesting and weird. But they actually don't. They actually do just talk. And she like gives him advice, but they're clearly like flirting and stuff like that. And then they sort of become a team. And the flirting is still kind of there, but not really. And it's like, well, obviously both these characters we know have like weird sexual pasts where they're like fucking everybody. So why isn't this happening? It does make sense why it isn't happening immediately. But you also kind of forget about it until Lucas brings it up very directly to Tom in the dinner scene where he offers Tom the job. And everything about that scene is great too. It's probably the best Lucas and the best Tom scenes in the entire show, I think. So, and Tom going for it was so great. It's interesting. I was kind of shitting on Tom throughout all these things, but I've definitely been more won over. Especially with him winning in the end or whatever, and forgiving Greg and stuff like that. That's great. Because Greg totally fucked him. Oh, and the great fight they have where Greg finally for once hits Tom back. Now it's a pathetic hit, and they just wrestle a little bit, but that was really cathartic. It's like a payoff. Oh, and there's also a scene where Shiv finds out that it's Tom, and it's the only scene in the show where somebody finds out information, storms around the corner, and tells somebody, which is like my favorite scenes ever. Is always scenes like that where it's like somebody finds something else, they march off, we see angry face, they yell it at somebody else, they all react, they have good reactions and stuff like that. This happens in Mad Men a lot, I think, where somebody charges into an office and says something and everybody reacts, and it's just like great little characterizing bits. And the show is explicitly restraining itself from doing things like that, and it lets itself do it this one time with Shiv finding out that it's Tom and stuff like that. It's really great. And then it's also, like, immediately afterwards, it's Tom realizing that obviously Greg fucked him and tells him to get in the bathroom so they can have their little fight. Everything about all that stuff is great. The best. Circling back to Kendall in the finale full circle, we talked about that. The first time Shiv or anyone in the show actually sprints over to tell somebody some information they just heard is in the finale with the Tom CEO reveal. Guess what I just said? Greg actually hits Tom back. Guess what I just said? No Jerry and Roman moment. And then my last note is Caroline is so fine. True. She wants to kill Hugo. True. And Hugo like aligned with Tom. With a Kendall. And Kendall tries to get everybody back on side. And that also tricks you into thinking that he's gonna like win or whatever, because he like he gets the security guard back on his side, which was all the security guard had some interesting stuff in this season too. But he feels like he's like becoming his father almost, and he might be able to do it, and he's becoming ruthless, and he like is gonna fuck over his siblings and gonna take control. But it's like a trick into thinking you that he has the aspects to maybe make it work, and to maybe actually like win in the end, but it doesn't happen. And then he's just like the mirror to his dad in the end where he's walking and the what is his name? I want to say Clive, but that's not his name, or Clint or something. I don't think so. It's not. I nearly said Connor, but that's our Connor. How can we think that? Whatever. Oh, and remember the Logan scene where he calls him his best pal, and Logan is like contemplating death the episode before he dies. How convenient. But yeah, him following Kendall around as he walks to the park is like a great little parallel thing. That was great. Those are all my explicit notes. There are other things I want to talk about that we'll go over the characters a little bit. Actually, maybe the characters is all I have left. There was the election episode. That was pretty cool. Also before the 2024 election, which is interesting. Also, it's interesting that Fox News didn't do it, that exact thing, when they could have in 2020, but they chose to have Waystar do it in the show. What was I saying? I mean, what else is there to say? But the election stuff is interesting. The Mencken stuff is interesting. We meet the other candidate, which is interesting. The tailgating party before that is interesting, where Nate comes back and he's talking to Kendall and everybody. The fact that Gil isn't the nominee is also interesting. Bunch of cool stuff. What can I say? And Connor didn't really get anybody. Connor's like, we need Kentucky. Kentucky's lost. Fuck Kentucky thing. That was cute. Actually, I think Willa was the one that said fuck Kentucky. Willa's development was also interesting, where she's becoming like much more defensive of Connor and dismissive of like smaller people and stuff like that, and is like seems to have given up into being forever unhappy in this marriage. And then it seems like they're gonna split up at the end, right? They have a thing where they're gonna like try long distance or whatever, because he's gonna go and serve the country in whatever role he gets given. That might not happen because it is ambiguous on how the election ends up in the end. Gross. What? That led me to something else. There are a bunch of cool episodes. What can I say? It is funny because I think I watched the first 3 episodes the night after I recorded the last discussion, which might be why like it took me a lot of time to finish the rest of them. Though when I had like 4 episodes left, I was like, okay, let's wrap this thing up so I can start Industry, which I have already started, by the way. I did watch episode 1 of Industry. Which I'll probably be doing season reviews just like this for Industry. I like to say it like that, you know. right after this. We'll continue it because I watched the first episode and I liked it a lot, so I'll be continuing pretty quickly. And I think they're usually much shorter than Silly Succession, which, oh, I did like it. The like movie length final episode is great. Especially for a final episode, more things should do that, I think. For first episodes, I absolutely hate it because I don't know if I like the show yet, and it always makes it daunting, and I don't want to watch it. I think Fallout, the show, right? The first episode is like an hour and 19 minutes. I don't like that shit. That's not good. Earn it and then use it at the end. I like that. I guess the last thing to do is sort of go through characters, I think. I want to bring up Jess. I like Jess. Everybody loves Jess. Everybody wants to marry Jess, I'm sure. She's like the assistant that can do anything. But because, like, they're electing, like, a Nazi guy and, like, a bunch of minorities are being attacked in the street and stuff, like Rava's kids, which might not be Kendall's kids, apparently, which was an interesting bombshell at the end, too. All that stuff was interesting. Everything's interesting to me. Did you know that? Everything that's good is instead interesting to me. Did you know that? But Jess quits too, and it's like great, and obviously Kendall doesn't handle it well. God, it's funny how Don handles it in that one scene with that one character. I guess I'm being vague, and how, like, God, these shows are just so different, and how that eventuates, and like Don is nice in the end. It's crazy, very nice. You know, I'm fucking crying just thinking about it. But And true, he has like in the final episode, he's like walking around. He's like, "Tell new Jess to do this or something." Now it could literally be that he hired another girl named Jess, but I'm pretty sure he's just being demeaning and looking out, wishing Jess was around. He's like, "Why do you have to tell me today?" After you forced her to tell her today. It was funny. Jess was the best. We all love Jess. True. The other characters. Roman, like, seems to go to a bar and drink and maybe is happy that now he's, like, free of this thing. But also, he's not going to do anything in his life. Shiv will probably go and start a company or something. Kendall probably will, too, after he gets over his depression, and then that'll fail, and he'll probably start another one and something like that. So they all get interesting. Obviously, I guess we actually didn't talk about this, but the Tom and Shiv may be reconjoining towards the end. They're like holding hands, but it's trepidatious. And Shiv also didn't actually do it for Tom, but now she can kind of claim she did. They're gonna have a kid, and maybe she can like get her way back into the company or something like that. Or she could control it through Tom. There's a bunch of different ways where that could go, but it's an interesting resolution for her. Connor and Willa kind of are splitting up. That's kind of the last we see of them, right? He's probably not going to get that position. He's probably not going to be president, but who knows? Weirder things have happened in American politics. Haha, who are we talking about with that one? We'll never know. Who else? Which other characters we got there? Jerry is going to be still going, or actually she's like getting paid off or something, right? So maybe she is leaving and getting like hundreds of millions if she walks out the door or something. Tom says Frank dead, Carl dead, and they both got like millions of dollars from this fucking deal anyway, I think, so they're probably fine with that. Carolina's gonna stay on. Hugo's probably fucking dead. So all that stuff is interesting, and Greg and Tom are gonna be running the company. Isn't that terrific? It's also interesting that the Lucas and Ebba stuff never actually fully exploded. It's also interesting that I'm pretty sure they know that she fucked them over, but she's just still a part of their inner circle and stuff like that. So all that stuff is interesting. I think that's all our major characters. Oh, I actually nearly didn't talk about this because I just thought about Marsha. They got that great scene where all of Logan's ex-women are all there, like, holding hands and stuff. And I was on the Jess Actress's wiki page, and it had, like, a Twitter link, and I saw that one of the tweets she sent that had, like, 10k likes or something was, like, Dream Blunt rotation. It was the 4 girls. I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty funny. Also, Carrie showing up was interesting, and she had a lawyer with her in case they didn't let her come. And then, like, she has to sit next to Marsha, and they, like, actually hold hands or something. And maybe they're being passive-aggressive bitches. And the first... Well, I think, actually, she's the second wife. Our kid's mother, like, grabbing Carrie to get her to sit up front to try and fuck with Marsha, but then them all kind of coming together and something like that is interesting and oddly cute and poignant, and what a varied bunch. Also, apparently the 4th one is Brian Cox's real wife. Did you know that? Fun fact. Sound like that girl from Pluribus. My goodness. But truing, is anybody else truing is anybody else truing right now? Is there anything else to talk about? Connor's weddings, a HBO wedding that ended it with a death. Can you believe it? Isn't that a funny joke? Also, I don't think at all that is the best episode in the show. I think it's like a great turning point. I don't know if it's necessarily like one of my favorite episodes or anything like that. What is my favorite episode now that I reflect upon it with reflection? The funeral episode is very good. I honestly don't think the finale is... It's a great finale. I don't think it's particularly my favorite episode. I think season 2 still might be my favorite, actually. I do think Dead Kendall is the most interesting Kendall. I do think probably the season 2 finale on the boat is really great. Take the fucking money. That was a pretty good moment. But that's not that good of an episode. Even the Madsen one where they're at his place in this season is pretty great. I don't know. I would have to think about it much more. What was like the season 3 finale? Oh, them all getting fucked at the wedding? That was actually pretty great. I feel like the episode before that was really good too. But maybe I'm thinking of the one before that because I think there's 2 episodes of the wedding. I don't recall. I'll have to think about this. I actually did start watching a video that was like ranking all the Succession episodes. I kind of agreed with it. The least favorite one was the one with the guy where Logan has to go on the long walk and nearly dies. That one was kind of bad. Well, not bad, but probably the least good. And then the rest of them were like season 1 episodes. And that's probably true. Season 1 is probably the weakest season. And I do still think that pilot is not that grabbing. And then episode 2 is interesting and better. But it is also like a bottle episode, which is not the best for engagement, I don't think. But I was liking the show enough to stick with it. And I wouldn't describe any of those episodes as bad, so... Interesting. I think we're about to wrap it up with the old Succession. I'll definitely do a tier list in the days to come. It is interesting. I say this all the time now, but like I used to finish a show or a movie or anything and have 17 video ideas. I don't got one video idea for Succession. I don't have like one original thought. I don't feel the need to be an expert and explain why any of these things are good. In fact, my favorite scene was probably still Logan giving the company to Shiv, but that's kind of been undermined because it was kind of fake. So yeah, I don't even know if I would want to make a video on that or anything. But the old Succession. I'm excited to dive more into communal and discourse things about it. And one day I'll probably rewatch it and then I'll get some video ideas. Remember that the mum was the lady that was the grandmother in Black Sails? My goodness. I don't think her performance in this show is certainly no Marion Guthrie. That's like the greatest acting performance I might have ever seen. Though all the greatest acting performances I might have ever seen are probably in Black Sails. Do we think about the overall picture? Because I'm pretty sure I only have 4 favorite shows, right? And Succession probably would be number 5 now. Because we got Mad Men, Sopranos, Boardwalk Empire, Black Sails. I think pretty definitively, I think they're all better than Succession. But I think it's Succession and then everything else. Now, there's also the Game of Thrones thing of where the fuck do you put that? But then, like, my other favorite shows are, like, You. I really like You, the TV series. I like Fleabag. I would say this is better than Fleabag. We Are Lady Parts. I really like that show, but it's more of a comedy show that doesn't take itself too seriously and probably doesn't have dramatic moments that could rival anything in Succession. I like Succession more than Pluribus. I can say that now. I finished... Whoa, actually, this is coming out way before the end of Pluribus, but as of now, I have seen all of Pluribus, and I would say I like Succession a lot more. What was the other show I finished this year? I definitely like it more than Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I definitely like it in totality more than House of the Dragon, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I finished another show this year. What is it? No, actually, I don't think I did, huh? A more interesting thing is, like, where is Succession going to be on our month-end rankings? That will definitively be the point where I have to decide if Succession is a 10. Because if I decide Succession is a 10, I might decide that I like it more than the first Dunk and Egg book. If it's a 9, I'm pretty sure it'll probably definitely be, well, I don't know, I might finish the second Dunk and Egg novel this month. I'm pretty sure it'll probably be my favorite thing I finished in February. It's better than Astrobot. I do like it more than Astrobot. And I think I even like it better than that fourth Pokemon movie, which was unimaginably great. So we'll have to see. But that's a whole bunch of speculation. And all things that will further conjoin, further be sorted out as we progress. Through life, that is. But anyway, stick around for a Succession tier list. I like doing these seasonal reviews for long-running shows that I'm catching up on or watching. So I think I'll continue this format. We're definitely going to continue with Industry, but we'll probably continue it after there. I don't know, maybe we'll stumble into a Breaking Bad at some point or another big prestige long-running show like The West Wing or something maybe. If you have any suggestions, put them in the comments below and I might consider them. I also might not. That was my Mickey Mouse impression. Should we review seasons of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, the 2000s version I might have watched as a kid? Probably too old to be watching that show when I was watching that show, actually. But anyway, Mickey had a big clubhouse. What was I supposed to do? Not watch? But yes, stick around for Industry if you're an industry head. We did get a comment about it. I forget which commenter. It was a reoccurring commenter too. Talking about how, was it Truth or something? I can't remember. Telling me that Industry is kind of like Succession. It scratches a similar itch, but it's more soapy. And I believe I responded to that comment, more soapy, with like big eyes or something, because obviously that's great. I love hearing that. And I've seen episode 1. I'm not going to talk about it too much. I'll compare it to Succession here. But true, stick around for that and all the other things. And fucking Dunk and Egg review came out yesterday. The last one will be out next week. I'm sure we'll do a fucking something. Subscribe, damn it. And look forward. Anyway, that's it for us. That's it for Succession. That's it for this video. Support links in the description below. Thanks.